Hey gang, just Aaron right here, Canadian Looney. So like, yeah, we've got another one here with, they keep putting Minister Melanie Joly in front of the camera. I don't know why. She's a fool. I hope you enjoyed the intro. It kind of makes me chuckle. You're gonna hurt the ground with a stick? I don't know. Whatever. Pretty funny. Anyways, Melanie Joly, her latest piece. Man, politics is frustrating to cover. We're gonna try to find a new way to cover it.
What do you feel? I feel Give it to them! What are they trying to take?
Mr. Pickles, what did you say to those ladies to get them so riled up? Come on, what did you say, Mr. Pickles?
Oh yeah, baby, let's go to Peru.
Bonjour tout le monde, allô, allô. Enjoying beautiful Peru, definitely not too tired. So I have enough now.
Hey gang, what's up? Just Aaron right here, Canadian Looney.
We're good? Yeah, I'm good. Okay, good. Hi, everybody. It's a pleasure to see you again today. I don't know if you were at the border of Trade a bit earlier. I'm happy to be with my colleague Parm Baines. And our goal is to talk about how much the Port of Vancouver is important, not only for trade for Canada, but also connected to the Indo-Pacific. It is part of our Indo-Pacific strategy as we're really connecting with many countries around the world to make sure that we have strong trade relations and that we're also diversifying. Now, we also know that we have a very strong border plan with a new fentanyl czar and the ministers of public safety and immigration were in Washington yesterday and the day before. So we wanted to make sure that Canadians, but also the American administration understands what we're doing every day on the border to keep our border and our ports safe. So it will be a pleasure for me to take your questions. Let me speak in French just a sec.
Sorry. Thank you. That's all the time we had for this morning. Merci, c'est tout le temps que nous avions pour la conférence de presse ce matin.
I don't mind a dumb whore on the boat, right? Like, I'm a regular person, but man, this Melanie Joly, they keep sticking her in front of the cameras and she's clueless and she doesn't even know. Like, watch her go on. It's embarrassing, really, as a Canadian. This is our foreign affairs minister. She's clueless. Like, man.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I've had. Well, first and foremost, and my reaction is the same than when you asked me the question before I saw the interaction. First and foremost, we believe in supporting Ukraine. Our position has not changed. We think Ukrainians are fighting for their own freedoms, but also fighting for ours. And we know that President Putin has no red lines. And he is, if we don't have a good deal for Ukraine, if we're not supporting Ukraine, there's a real risk that President Putin will go back to Russia, rearm and reinvade Ukraine, which would become, again, a security threat for Ukraine, of course, but for NATO. And when we are talking about NATO, we're talking about us, of course. Now, what I would add to that is clearly the Russians are noting the interaction that happened today. And so our goal is to make sure that we can continue to support Ukrainians and that we can keep very strong G7 unity amidst all this unpredictability and sometimes even chaos.
Sorry. Thank you. That's all the time we had for this morning. Merci, c'est tout le temps que nous avions pour la conférence de presse ce matin.
So I've been in contact with many of my counterparts in the UK, including the Foreign Minister David Lammy and the National Security Advisor Jonathan Powell this morning. No country on earth will be able to divide Canada and UK. Why? Because we're close, because of our history, because of our people, because of our trade. It is just in our DNA to be close to the UK. And so I'm confident that we will be able to continue this strong partnership between Canada and the UK on full display. And at the same time, we need to work together on addressing the unpredictability that is coming out of the White House. And that is why I was there earlier this week. And we're working on finding ways to work on counter tariffs, should there be tariffs imposed, and also on having strong security alliances, including on intelligence sharing. So we already have tariffs that are imposed on key components that are coming from China, and including also electric vehicles. When it comes to the US and their own concerns, we're able to have conversations. We are very open to have also trade-related conversation, including when it comes to China. And so I'm convinced that I will be able to have these conversations with the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, and also the Minister of Finance, Dominic LeBlanc, will be able to talk to Scott Bessent about it. But fundamentally, what we have said to the Trump administration is we will never accept any form of tariffs against us. And if tariffs are against us, we will fight back. And we are the only country on the planet that has said we will come up with $155 billion worth of tariffs and a first tranche of $30 billion, which is actually of listed goods. Yeah. What we've learned through all these different conversations and negotiations is we need to engage, and we'll continue to do that in a very pragmatic way. And that's why I was speaking with Lindsey Graham this morning. That's why I'm in contact with Marco Rubio, and many of my colleagues are doing that same work. But fundamentally, at the end of the day, we know that the deal will be struck between the Prime Minister and the President. And that's why we need to make sure that we get all that information. But fundamentally, at the end of the day, the only deal is between the President and the Prime Minister. So when we are having conversations with the Americans, we know that any other subject can be on the table. But the main subjects that are on the table are the ones presented by the President. We will continue to definitely support Ukraine. And we're having conversations with Europeans about that. But it is important to remember that President Trump has said that himself. It is important that the U.S. gets a good deal out of the possible ceasefire and end of the conflict in Ukraine. Why? For two reasons. First, China is looking, and the U.S. must be able to send a clear message to China, particularly when it comes to a potential invasion of Taiwan. Second, it is important because we know that a bad deal would be bad for many countries, but particularly would be an opportunity for President Putin to take advantage of the U.S. and of European allies and us. And we can't afford that. And so that's why we'll continue to engage. We have agreed with the US and with Europeans that we needed security guarantees for Ukraine. How we will define these security guarantees is at the core of the diplomatic conversations we're having. We've said it many times, everything is on the table. I'm having a conversation and a meeting with Premier Eby, leaving you wonderful people. I'm open to have that conversation. I think that what we're seeing right now in the US is Americans are tuning in to the fact that tariffs would be bad for them because they would create inflation. They would have it would have an impact at the pump. It would have an impact when they go to for the groceries. It will have an impact on home heating. And so we don't want tariffs. We said clearly it is bad for, we don't want a trade war. We will never launch one. But of course, if there are decisions that are taken by the White House, we will retaliate, we will react. So that's why, meanwhile, we're having conversations about the security of the border. That's why we're here, Parm and I. But that's also why we need to prepare and make sure that everything is on the table. I've said in the past when asked that question, I'm not in the headspace of President Trump. So, and I think none of us here and no one in the world is. But our goal is to engage, is to gather information while understanding that there's so many jobs at home that are affected by this, so many families across the country that are anxious about this. So that's why we'll keep on fighting. And meanwhile, that's why as the head of the diplomacy here in Canada, I'll be engaging every single day, every hour of the day to make sure that Canadians' interests are defended. So just to give context, there are 3 executive orders under which we are and other countries as well. So the first one is linked to the security of the border. And that's why we're doing the job. We invested $1.3 billion in a very good plan to protect our border. And we'll continue to present the data, the facts, to the White House. But I think also we have to remember that Canadians have leverage. Why? Because we're the biggest client of the United States. We buy more from the Americans than China, Japan, the UK, and France all together. So when we say buy local to Canadians, use your consumer power, use your power when you're at the grocery store, or if you're a business leader, when you decide who are your different people that you will be working with, to make sure that you buy Canadian, to reinforce each other. So it's not as if, you know, we don't have an impact on this. We do. So that's my first point. Second executive order is linked to aluminum and steel. That is affecting every country that is exporting aluminum and steel to the US. So we need to make sure that we fight back. And I've been to Europe over the past 2 weeks, working with the Germans, the Brits, the French, and also the EU to make sure that we have the same counter-tariff measures affecting businesses in America. And thirdly, there is a third executive order that is linked to reciprocal tariffs, and that is coming up on April 1st. And that's the will of the White House to make sure that there are different deals with all the different trading partners that the Americans have in the world. And so when you hear reciprocal tariffs from the president, it is linked to that third executive order. So my point is the Americans are putting a lot on the table in order to try to negotiate. Our goal will, at every single negotiation table, will be to defend Canadians' interests. We have a very broad strategy. It is involving many different strategies, but I won't negotiate in public. Two comments on that. First, the only ones that will be able to have an impact on President Trump for him to change course are the Americans themselves. No country is able to convince the American people more than Canadians. We're the closest country on the planet to the Americans, and we have family, friends, etc. So we know the Americans, and we know that we can convince them to make sure that they put pressure on the White House. Second, we're over-reliant on the US. We know it. it is a moment that is pivotal in the history of our country. We need to get rid of internal barriers between provinces and territories. It is a real problem that in Canada, it is easier to send products and export services to the US than east-west. We have to change our mindset. We have to seize this opportunity, and that's what we'll do. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Right now, on field! What do you feel? I feel Give it to them! What are they trying to take?
Hey, that's something everyone can enjoy.
In Canadian federal politics, the Canucks are represented by two separate yet unequal groups: the globalists who sold out and the opposition trying to salvage a country. These are their stories.